All right, welcome to the next episode, the 10th episode of the Game or Die podcast. I'm going to be your host, Ryan Moore, and today we have a very special guest for this special episode. I have my wonderful and lovely wife, Elizabeth Moore. Hi. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Mr. Moore.
Hi. All right, so today our subject, basically, instead of talking about a bunch of different games that I've been playing, that's kind of what I do on these podcasts. I'm going to try and do something a little bit different. And
it's going to the only game I play.
Talk to you about one particular game you play, and it's because it's a very special game to you. It's a series of games, which is the Mass Effect series. So when was the first time that you really got into Mass Effect? Do you remember?
It was in 2008, after it won some awards or got some accolades or attention somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Like Game of the Year awards?
Possibly. I don't know what it got.
Okay.
Well, my brother brought it home. He rented it, and he played a little bit of it, and I thought, well, I want to play because I like Knights of the Old Republic.
Mm-hmm.
And I picked it up and started playing it. It reminded me of the old game. Everybody else went to sleep, and I played it all through the night. And then he had to return the video game. And I thought, I got to go buy it.
So you actually went and bought the game after you already played it a little bit because you were just so, it grabbed you, like it was
right.
Really, really intense.
It was.
So that was the first one, right?
That was Mass Effect 1.
Okay, so you played them in sequential order, correct?
I did.
Okay.
As they came out.
So when you created your characters, or your character, your Shepard,
mm-hmm.
Did you do the male or female version?
I did the female, so me and my brother always, whatever he did, I did the opposite.
Okay.
So if he
did you want to do the opposite?
No, it was just he was playing it as a Paragon male Shep, and so he's like, you should do the Renegade one because we had one system, and so
mm-hmm.
we would watch each other play, and he didn't want to re-see what we were already doing.
Right.
So I would do just the Renegade options.
Okay, so then, Paragon and Renegade are like good and bad, basically?
There are different world views. So one Shepard will view the world or her decisions in a, you could say more positive, but it's more of a responsible way where that Paragon Shepard is going to think of every effect the decision will make.
Okay.
And the Renegade
every
Shepard.
Mass Effect. Sorry. So every effect that that Shepard would make has consequences, right?
Right, and so that Paragon is just a responsible person who's thinking of every single possible outcome and what's going to have the least damage done. And
okay.
Renegade Shepard is a little more single-minded and isn't thinking so far ahead. There's a little more logic to Renegade
mm-hmm.
Shepard's decisions. Sometimes they seem very stupidly harsh, where it's like, that doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
But for the main decisions, it's usually a single-minded view that isn't so thought out.
Okay.
Just what's logical at the moment.
All right. So when you played this and I'm trying to think of the way to describe it. Did you do everything in the game the first time through, or did it take multiple multiple playthroughs to really get into the game, or were you just like drawn to it from the get-go?
So from the get-go, I was drawn into it. I didn't do a completion. I tried to do as much as possible the first time through. Mm-hmm. But I also was aware that I was going to go back and play it as a Paragon.
Okay.
So my Renegade wasn't completely done because I thought if I'm going to come back and play it, I want to leave some stuff unseen as well.
Right.
So I came back and played it Paragon, and the story fleshed out a little more because it's a second playthrough. I'm seeing it again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you're playing, do you go for what you want to say as Shepard? Do you role play, or do you, or sorry, do you play it as yourself playing the game, or do you play it as Shepard, like role playing the game? Like,
I
what
play
would
it as
Shepard say?
because I have my 2 Shepards.
Okay.
And I have my Paragon one. And so I will do what I think my Paragon Shepherd would do.
Mm-hmm.
And I've painted her a certain way. So she looks a certain way in every playthrough I've done. That's always going to be the same named Shepherd. It's always going to be female, and she's always going to make the same decisions.
Okay.
My Renegade I have the same thing. She's always a soldier. So same type of playthrough. I haven't ventured out and played as different what do you call that?
Different like archetypes?
Yeah,
almost?
all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've played it. My Paragon has always been a sniper. She's always been an infiltrator. And then my Renegade, because I assume she's going to be more of a brute, a little more logic. I have her be a soldier. And that's the one that I also would play around with the story a little bit more.
It'd be a little bit looser with your actions, not so calculated?
No, just if I wanted to explore something, it was with my Renegade Shepherd.
Oh, okay. Now, one of the big things, because this is what BioWare does, is they create
beautiful
these
games.
What?
He said beautiful games.
Yeah, they create these beautiful games and gigantic worlds with a ton of characters in them. When you play these games, who is your favorite character? Like, who is the character that pops up on screen and you just get giddy?
All of them.
All of them?
I can tell you which ones I hate.
Okay.
Miranda.
Well, that's in the second game, right?
I
want to focus on. I want to focus on the first game first, then the second game, and then the third game.
Then for sure, I hate Ashley.
Ashley, okay, that's the space racist, right?
Right. No, I wouldn't call her a space. Yeah, they actually do paint her that way quite a bit, which I don't like, because of course the only racist is also the religious one, and I think that's pretty silly.
The religious one? Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah.
So I don't like that sort of underlying message of the racist one is also the religious one.
Uh-huh.
And everybody else who is so enlightened is so accepting of everything else. But I feel like that's a little hidden agenda, but it is what it is.
Right.
Yeah. So I wasn't a fan of Ashley because she seemed to clash within her own character. And was really annoying because of course she did hate all the other races.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't because I'm also a female. Mm-hmm. There's nothing. I just saw this character and thought that she's poorly made. I really don't like her.
Right.
If anything, I enjoyed disliking her and the decision. Do I get to do spoilers?
Yeah. I mean, yes, this game is over a decade old.
Okay. Well, I don't know. What if somebody's never played it and they're like, oh no. So
I don't think that's a huge spoiler anyways. Like it's a decision, but it's not really spoiling the story because you have to make a decision.
No, but I think the reason that I was so drawn into Mass Effect, it wasn't just that, I like talking to all the characters. It's that it made you make decisions. The first couple of times that me and my brother played it, people like Rex didn't have to die, but he died. And so we would go back and go, okay, what happened? What did we do? Or he got to do that. And then when I played, I made sure I didn't kill off Rex.
Right.
I got to see these big decisions when my brother played it, and then I went in to play it. But it was kind of that shock value of those decisions that I liked. Mm-hmm. That I wasn't afraid to just kill off certain characters and move on.
See, that's one of the big things for me. When I remember when I first played the game, I didn't really enjoy it too much. It was just not, I don't know. I think it was because I just wasn't in the right mindset for that game at the time that I was playing it. When I started dating you and you made me play this game, I had to look at it through a different light because it was more of I'm being forced to play this game that I remember not really enjoying. And when I started playing it, I kind of beelined it like for the main points because I had you coaching me really, through the entire game.
Right.
And I think you were holding my hand just a little too much through my first playthrough, because you kind of told me who to romance, where to go, who to save, who not to save.
No, I don't think so.
I think so.
I think I was upset when you had chosen a female shepherd. That was the first part.
See,
so from there, if you're choosing a female shepherd, I felt like you weren't taking the game seriously, because really the more prominent choice would have been male shepherd.
But the male shepherd voice is so bad.
No, but I felt like you're okay. Him so you were definitely playing into all the previous people. You had all these preconceived negative notions for the game. I didn't like all of that. If you had just started with a male and moved forward, it would have been a different game. And a part of me wanted to see it that way, because I didn't get to see male shepherd's story very much. The seeing another female shepherd, really your only options for romance are Liara and Caden.
Right.
So really you've got one choice. So that's the way I saw it.
Yeah. I mean, I totally understand it.
Because I let you know if you wanted me to help or not. And there were a couple of times that you veered off, or you wouldn't take the character seriously. Yeah. And that's when I would say, stop.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. The last time I played a BioWare game in seriousness was Knights of the Old Republic. I mean, even the second one, like, I remember playing it, but I never finished it because I didn't enjoy it as much. I think the whole Darth Revan reveal. That was the first game. Yeah, exactly. Oh, okay. The first game was the BioWare game for me.
Right.
Second one, not so much. It was done by a different company.
The second one did a really good job with the Sith stuff, because you got to influence your characters even more so. Like you could make, I forget what the guy's name was, the Iridian or whoever he was.
Man, we need to play that, because I don't remember
You could make him light or dark. Like you had to choose the correct options, and then it would be like, oh, influenced more toward the dark side or toward the light side or whatever. And you could see like his character getting more red in his face and then turning more into that like red and black lined face. Or he'd be like glowing with a halo or whatever if he was good. But I liked that there were characters you could influence and turn to your side. And I'm sad I never finished it. Like I got to the old lady, and I think I saw my brother get there. And once I saw him finish the game, and I was right before that part, I kind of just didn't finish my game.
Right.
But I enjoyed the entire way through to that point.
Yeah. And that's why I think I didn't really take Mass Effect when I was playing it for the first time really so seriously, is because immediately off the bat, it's very, very different from the Knights of the Old Republic games. And I love those so much. Like that first game is one of my favorite games of all time.
Very similar. Like I almost felt like I was jumping right back into it, because there's the Force. Like the whole stuff is the Force.
Right. I mean, I played the first one when it came out, in 2003, and played a little bit of the second in 2005. And then, I mean, since then, we started dating in 2015. So that was kind of the next BioWare game that I played. It was almost a decade after.
Right.
So when I played it, I didn't take it seriously, but I did eventually get there. I did eventually get the characters and really understand it. I liked the first game's story because it's dealing with a big unknown. When you get to the second game and the third game, you kind of know what's at stake, but you have no idea in that first game.
Right, they do feel you. I mean, you kind of know you're Shepherd, so you know what's going on with this Reaper invasion, but you don't know how huge it is. You don't know that the Protheans weren't the first civilization, even though Liara kind of hints at it. It's really cool stuff. Like I really liked the Codex and hearing the guy flesh out the universe a bit.
Those are always really hard for me, because when I get to a game that has a lot of like audio dialogues or a lot of text that fills in the backstory, if I'm not captivated by the story in the first place, I just skip over them. And when I was originally playing it through, I just kind of skipped over a lot of that stuff because it was like, I'm not really invested yet.
Right.
And so it was really hard for me to get into those audio codecs and, the diaries and things like that in the first place. But it does like flesh out the world, like you said, a lot more.
Right. And it's just certain things. Like if I was curious about something and I'm like, what was that? And I'd go back to the codex and listen to more about the Krogan genophage or whatever.
Right.
And I can kind of choose what I wanted to hear more about. And a lot of the stuff I was like, I don't want to read that. But there were a few, once I was very invested in the game, I did like to sit there and listen to a lot of it or read the secondary codex and stuff like that.
So when you played it for the first time after your brother played it and you saw it and then you bought it, that was 2008 roughly, right?
Right.
So you had to wait a couple years before the second game came out.
Right. And that entire time I was replaying Mass Effect.
How many times did you replay Mass Effect, do you think, roughly?
So the first one, by this time, I have no idea. At that time, I have no idea.
Okay.
I know I did a Paragon, I did a Renegade, and I did each one at least twice.
Okay, so
because
at least 4 times.
Because I heard that once I heard like, hey, your stuff is gonna roll over to the second game, I wanted to make sure that I had them like as spruced up as possible.
Right.
And so I wanted the highest level, I wanted completed stories, I wanted to complete a lot of stuff I hadn't completed. I think I had attempted Insanity, but I just always stuck with the hardcore difficulty. But those are some of the things I was doing, completing some of the achievements, making sure I played it a lot because there were achievements for using a character for a majority of the game. And I got all of them because I wanted to take the Krogan out, take the Sentinel out or whatever. So I had Caden and Rex. And I generally would always just play with Caden and Rex on my Paragon. And so I swapped them out quite a bit. And I probably did most of that on the Renegade side, swapping out the team members, but I wanted to make sure I got everybody.
Did you get all the achievements in that game?
I don't know. I probably got a majority of them. I know I didn't get the Insanity one. But that was a little bit more cumbersome to play in that game. And so I thought the challenge with hardcore was enough. I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when the second game came out, it allowed you to import your save.
Right.
To, continue your story as your shepherd.
Right.
Now, when that happens, you kind of have to pick if you have multiple playthroughs and a Paragon and a Renegade version and all that stuff.
And I actually had a third one that was my whatever one where I did all the middle choices through the game. Romance nobody. Killed Caden because I had left him alive in both of my other ones. Just stuff to see if I could get a different experience in the second game.
So which one was your canon version?
I absolutely relied on the Renegade more because when the second game came out, my brother played Paragon. And again, we're both playing it around the same time. And so he's running through it when Paragon and I'm running through it as a Renegade. And he would watch my playthrough and I would watch his. And we'd be around the same place. And so we were really interested in seeing the different experiences and just how different they were. Yeah, and then I always had the female shepherd and he had the male shepherd. And I remembered he would always comment that his sucked so bad that he didn't like the dialogue with his male shepherd.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I think watching it, well, to me, it's like I didn't pick up too much on it because I liked the story and I felt like I do think that the female shepherd is a bit stronger than the male shepherd as far as, I don't know, it seems like she's more of a presence. I don't know if they say the same amount of lines or not, or if his just don't come off as intensely.
Right.
So I feel like it's a softer playthrough with a male shepherd.
Okay.
There's a lot of yelling with female shepherd.
So when the second game came out and it was more action oriented, as opposed to the first game, which was a little bit more story oriented. Did you like it, or were you kind of off put by how much more actiony that game
No,
was?
because there was never anything about. So I accepted the combat for what it was in the first one and in the second one. It wasn't any problem if they had decided to go completely different and just go more RPG or something and add lightsabers. I would have been happy. It doesn't matter what the combat was because I was already happy with the game. So I wasn't off put by it. It felt very similar. I don't think about combat specifically and go, this one feels better. It was just the same game again to me.
Right. Now, with the second one being much more action oriented, it kind of started branching off a little bit and making you do like the scanning of the planets and all that stuff,
Right.
and search in probing planets. And did you like that at all?
I did. So initially I liked everything because it's a new Mass Effect. And so I was just like, yeah, this is the best. After both playthroughs, then I was like, okay, this is really irritating. I got to get a bunch of crap. And it wasn't as, I wasn't like, yeah, I'll sit here and scan for a couple hours or whatever and fill up everything and listen to music. It was like I didn't have time to do that. I was just trying to get through more playthroughs. And so I think that was irritating, but I liked it when they updated it because they did end up speeding up the scanning quite a bit.
Oh, and, like an actual like a game update?
It was an actual game update, yeah.
Okay.
So they made it faster. And then I realized, I didn't have to rely on so much of it. And I really knew what to upgrade at that point. Once I had played through it a few times, I knew I needed the ship upgrades. And then I would just upgrade my handgun or sniper rifle.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew what to do, so I wasn't needing to scan so much. I wasn't trying to complete all the upgrades once I did a few playthroughs.
Right. Yeah, because once you go through that game and you've kind of seen everything, you don't need to 100% it every single time, right?
Right. And there were quite a few of the little planets I completely forgot about when I watched new playthroughs.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, oh man, that doesn't even seem familiar to me, but I do know I completed it at some point.
Right. Yeah. The scanning of the planets, I enjoyed. It was very cathartic, I think, for me, when I would sit back,
Right.
like after I would hang out with you and then go back home or
Right,
whatever.
right.
You go, all right, go ahead and do a bunch of scanning. And I'd sit there and I just listen to a podcast or something like that and just kind of hang out and do it for like 20 or 30 minutes straight.
Right.
Except for some of the little tiny, little shimmering planets that I couldn't find for the life of me. Those bugged me a little bit.
Well, those are the meteors. They were in
Right.
the asteroid belt.
Yeah, little asteroid belts and stuff like that. The little tiny
Usually
ones.
those weren't scanning though. Those were more like
But you
side
gotta-
story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they would
And
have
I-
something. And I think that was the first game that had the little shiny one.
Was it?
Yeah, the
Okay.
first game had the shiny sparkles in the asteroid belt, and you'd zoom in, and it would be
Like a little mini story.
I don't
Like,
even
oh, this
remember.
mining colony was destroyed.
No, you would scan it for experience. It was more like you'd get medallions out of it. Yeah,
Okay.
like this colony, there's ruins here, and you found a Solarian medallion, or I don't know, whatever.
Right.
Turian War, blah blah.
Yeah. So with the second story, did you, as it continues on, this amazing game as a sequel to this game that you just fell in love with, did you like the story as much? Or was it not as good?
I very much, because it was the story, the main story was very similar. I mean, you're still trying to stop the Reapers.
Right.
What I really, really enjoyed is I did like all the different loyalty missions.
Mm-hmm.
I did Jacob's first, and I would do that.
That's the one with his dad, right?
Commonly, yeah. And I really liked the Renegade one. And my first playthroughs in Mass Effect 2, I did not use triggers because the way it was marketed, or whenever they were starting to introduce Mass Effect 2, they said for your, second playthrough or whatever, we've added triggers so that you can kind of speed through scenes. And so when I heard somebody say that at some press conference about Mass Effect 2 or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
I thought, well, I wouldn't want to speed up my scenes, so I will not use any of the triggers. So I didn't do that the first 2 runs. And it's after playing it a certain amount of time, then I did go back and I would used to use the triggers. But yeah, I feel like first playthrough, you shouldn't feel like the trigger is a challenge. Like, oh, I missed it. It's like, no, now you get to see the entire scene.
Right. The way that they wrote it, and then like you kind of have like
right,
little
and then right
offshoots.
after that, you have your Paragon and Renegade option anyway. It's not like you've lost your Paragon or Renegade option. They kind of are additional in some places, I think, but you still get plenty of Renegade and Paragon through the game, and it just gives you a longer scene when you don't interrupt it.
Mm-hmm. Now, with this, they basically, obviously, spoilers for the beginning of the game. I mean, it's the beginning of the game. Shepard dies, gets brought back to life, and brought back to life by this big like company, you know.
And I loved that trailer. Like, I would just watch that constantly before the game because I was like, that is amazing.
Which trailer is that? Because I actually don't know which one you're talking about.
Okay, maybe it wasn't a trailer. Well, it was like the scene that Shepard dies.
Oh, okay.
They show you that that Shepard does start falling toward the planet, and she's like
burning up in the atmosphere.
Yeah, and really trying, like you can see all the air shooting out of all the pressure kind of shooting out, and she just starts falling like a little meteor. So that was always a really cool scene, and I enjoyed that tone, that Mass Effect sound. And I used that on my phone for a long time.
So Cerberus is this big corporation that basically buys your DNA that was salvaged and brings you back to life. And basically the CEO, the elusive man,
right?
You're kind of contracted to him because he brought you back to life and says, hey, you know, go. What does he want? What is the elusive man really trying to get out of bringing Shepard back to life, you think?
So he's got a huge ego. And so what he wants is just to control. And when he sees this huge thing that's a threat, I don't think it's so much that that he wants to stop the threat. It's that he wants to be stronger than that. And so he wants to prove that he's better than this threat, or at least wield whatever it is. It's a machine. You kind of see that toward the end of the game when he wants to keep the schematics and use the technology. He's constantly trying to get better, but I do think it's an ego trip. I've brought you back. Now you're going to go work for me, and I need this tech from the Reapers because that's going to build up my resources more.
Okay.
Not so much about protecting people, because although that's his guys or whatever, there's plenty evidence against Cerberus being pro people, because he's willing to sacrifice them for research in the name of research or whatever.
Right. So in the first game, you basically have like this crew that you've assembled as you go through the game. I
was very disappointed that they did not reuse more of the characters.
See, that's exactly what I was going to say is you get basically in the first game, you have Garrus.
Right.
The sniper. You have
and
Rex.
He's not really like touted as a sniper. I think it's in the second game where they kind of hone in on everybody's like, this person's really much better as this.
Right. They kind of put him into like a general class.
Yeah. Like in the first game, they try to do a little bit of the, choose the characters that balance with your Shepard, where in the second game, they're like, really choose the characters that are going to be best for your mission.
Right. So you have Garrus, you have Rex, then you have Ashley. And for the first game, who else? Tally. And who else? Is that it?
Okay, who did you list? So there's Liara, Tally, Kaidan, Ashley, Garrus, and Rex.
Okay, there you go. So you have like 6 main people.
Right.
And that is your crew. Now, in the second one, and I like that they did this because they kind of like throw everyone for a loop. They threw me for a loop when I started playing with you. When we finished the first game and we went on to the second game, I was like, all right, I remember this. You have Garrus shows up. I remember playing that, and then I stopped.
Right.
And then when we started dating, we finished the first game, got to the second game, we got to Garrus, and then it was like, wait, what about Rex? And you pick up Grunt instead. which is kind of a very similar character, but an actual different character altogether.
Right, you're kind of thinking that you're gonna see Rex on that mission when it says, retrieve the Krogan or whatever the Krogan
right
scientist or whoever he is.
Mm-hmm.
I actually really liked Rex's role in the second game. He's there. He needs to take care of business on Tuchanka.
He's basically a king, right?
Right. And then there's Liara. Was more disappointing because they didn't have all that DLC initially.
Right.
So you just had her sitting in some office in Ilium, and it really didn't make a whole lot of sense. Like Rex was running Tuchanka. She's just a broker's agent, and for some reason can't leave her desk to join Shepard. So it didn't make much sense. So once she chases the Shadow Broker and becomes that, it's makes more sense, and it's a better role for her in that game. And then I'm happy. That's fine. She's not sitting at some desk with some lame excuse for not being able to join, because she can absolutely do that anywhere. She wasn't the Shadow Broker at that time.
Right.
So that felt better when they added that DLC. I replayed it and just had her. I did the Shadow Broker pretty quickly so that I could have those resources for the rest of the game. It was disappointing that they had, whether it was Ashley or Kaidan, who would have been a love interest in the first game, be removed from the second game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they considered them boring characters at that time, if they wanted to see what it didn't make sense to me.
Well, they're human, so I mean, and again, a lot of the appeal of Mass Effect is space and aliens and unknown.
Well, and that's where I'm thinking that people, I mean, if you're thinking about the character Shepard, she's a human.
Mm-hmm.
So although she's surrounded with all these people, it's going to be Ashley and Kaidan that are going to be more familiar, and they're going to be going through what she's going through, but they're kind of dismissed in the game.
Yeah.
And they're brought back a lot more with a lot more personality in the third game, and it was maybe with some backlash from Mass Effect 2. But when you start off, Kaidan is just a soldier, and he's going, what the heck were we thrown into? It's very similar to what Shepard was doing.
Our cat is playing.
I don't know what that is. It's gross.
It's like a mosquito or something.
It's not a mosquito. It's fat.
Okay. So Mass Effect 2 threw out a lot of characters in place of new characters. Do you like the new or at the time anyways, did you like the new characters? Or
so
were
I can tell
pissed?
you how I felt about it when Mass Effect 3 started, but Mass Effect,
we'll get there.
Mass Effect 2, without me knowing what was going to happen in the third game, I was very disappointed. I understood Miranda. The way she was created, I felt like she was meant to be disliked, even though that probably is not the case. I disliked her immediately because she is the elusive man's right hand. I had no sympathy for a perfect character.
Mm-hmm.
No sympathy for somebody who is whining and feels bad that she's just so perfect. There's no there's no relation to a character like that. There's no I know they used an actress. To me, I felt like what a waste of money. They could have put Ashley here or anybody. What a twist it would have been to have your love interest be the right hand to, I don't know, something.
Yeah.
But that
actually does sound super interesting.
Right. So Miranda, I like the way Jack talks to her. She is very much the Cerberus cheerleader, and it's a very bad thing to be. So I did not like her very much. I didn't like her loyalty mission. It was kind of empty. She stole this baby, and I understand she saved the kid, but the loyalty mission felt like it was just more I don't know, it really didn't feel, it was a very shallow type thing. She had some best friend, but it's like I didn't care, and maybe it was because I just disliked her character.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't care that she had some old best friend that was working for her dad to get his kid back. Like it was like, okay, whatever. There's your sister. She's saved. Let's go to a fun mission. So usually Miranda and Jacob I got out of the way just to build up Paragon points. Jacob's character I actually liked. I thought he's just a kind of a grunt with Cerberus, and he that's the way he felt, even though I'm sure he was one of the elusive man's more trusted people, or he wouldn't have put him on the ship. Yeah, so I was okay with Jacob. I didn't think he was a bad character for the game. I enjoyed having another human, again, somebody who's just kind of like, what is going on here, and can relate to human history in space and kind of bring that back because, again, this is a new race in this place. I know there's a lot of humanity with the elusive man, but it just felt nice to have a character kind of talk about war stories or whatever with you, or kind of reference. He didn't talk so much about war stories, but reference being in the military or whatever.
Right.
Or with the Alliance. And then you've got like this. I did like Zaid. So they did get some DLC characters that were human, but they
added a ton because I remember, I don't remember any of those when I played the game for the few hours that I did or whatever.
Yeah.
And I didn't remember hearing about them until we played them and it was like, oh, let's get all the DLC. And you got Zaid, Kasumi.
Those are the only two.
Those are the only two? Okay. Mm-hmm. And then the DLC, like Shadow Broker and all that fun
then there's
stuff,
all that other... Yeah. There's a lot of DLC in that one. Yeah, Zaid reminded me of Canderous, and Canderous was from the first game, and he's who people think is the Mandalorian King dude in the second game on your crew for Knights of the Old Republic.
Oh, okay.
And so Canderous is... I always enjoyed talking to him. He was one of my favorite one of my favorite characters in the first Knights of the Old Republic. And he just told you war stories. And he'd be like, you just talk to you like a grandpa and would give you all these war stories. And so when Zaid came on, even though he wasn't, he was a mercenary too. So it really was, to me, it was like a throwback to Canderous. And I didn't mind it. So I enjoyed going to listen to to Zaid's stories. And I thought it was a cool character to have. He's just a mercenary there. He's got some stories
I liked him
to
a
tell.
lot.
Yeah. And he was tough. I liked taking him on missions. He was actually a good character to take with you. So I would get him and immediately I would never have Miranda or Jacob on my team. I'd pick him up and Kasumi up just so I could avoid using Miranda and Jacob.
Right. Now with those characters, when you get all of the characters and you are free to kind of pick and choose the best ones for the battle or the mission that you're going on.
And I would always get all the characters before doing any loyalty missions.
Right. Which ones did you gravitate more towards? Which ones were your favorites to pick out of all of those?
For
the majority of them, not mission specific, but like when it didn't really matter, which ones did you want to grab and take with you?
So it would depend on my shepherd. If it was my infiltrator shepherd, I usually had, let me see, this Mass Effect 2.
Yeah.
Oh, there's so many. I would usually have Grunt with me, and then I really liked Samara. So I usually would throw Samara in. And every once in a while I'll do like an old female team. So I would have Samara and Jack, and I liked doing that with my infiltrator.
Mm-hmm.
And it would depend, it would change, but I did like doing Samara and Jack. I liked the shockwave thing, and then Samara throwing other stuff around and all these biotic explosion type stuff. For my renegade, I would also, I guess I gravitated towards Samara a lot, using her. I liked Grunt, I liked Garrus. And Zaid was in there a lot in the beginning. But once I had all the characters, it would be more Samara, and once I got Legion, he would absolutely be with me.
Oh, yeah. Legion's awesome. But he kind of shows up near the end of the game, right? He shows up near the
end, and it really depends on how you've run the game. So by that time, I think I'm allowed to do like 2 missions or something, or maybe just 1 before I have to go get the colony or save the colony so we don't lose all the people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you don't get to use them a whole lot. Except for maybe after game if you're beating DLC, but I always did all of that prior to beating the game.
Now, the DLC, it's kind of one of the Shadow Broker is one of the DLCs that always gets brought up in like top DLC lists of all time. Why is the Shadow Broker so good? Why do you think it's so good?
So to me, I enjoyed it, but
do you think it's overrated?
I don't know. I mean, it's good. I just don't think that it is like so much better than the rest of the game. To me, the game was already very good, and I was happy to have more content. and that more content felt more like Mass Effect 3. So I think it was great because it was getting you hyped up for the next game.
Like almost a bridge to
the next game. And it really was it was really cool that way. The dialogue was good, and it really did feel a lot more like, once you got into Mass Effect 3, you're like, hey, this feels a lot like that Shadow Broker DLC.
Now, with Mass Effect 3, when that came out, they basically took, for me, I'm trying to remember because it's been a while since we played through that one or we even watched it. What is special about Mass Effect 3? Because if you go online, man, that no one has anything good to say about Mass Effect 3, but I really, really enjoyed it when we played it.
I think there's a lot of people who absolutely love the game, and they felt, and even now I think it's calmed down. It was right after the game ended that everybody wanted to throw a fit because it didn't end the way they wanted, or there were people who were writing better endings than what was there.
Oh yeah, the fanfic.
Right. And there was one that I read that was just a short, like, description of how it could have ended. I think they absolutely could have done, it wasn't so much, I think, the way it ended, that it gave you these different storylines. It gave you a Renegade and a Paragon throughout the entire series. You get to the third game, and you beat it, and the endings are similar. But it was interesting to me because I have my own theory that there really is only one ending. So yeah, you've taken these two paths, but ultimately you need to choose that red one, because honestly, I've not had, I don't know, I might have to explore it more, but I haven't had Shepard survive Mass Effect 3 unless I destroyed the Reapers. Not merged with tech, not, become whatever, go through the center or the left one, but going through the right one where Anderson shows up. My Renegade and Paragon both survived. But any other way, they didn't. And so I felt like there's just one ending to that game.
Did you like the original ending when before they went back and changed it because everyone was a big baby about it?
I did very much enjoy so I felt like it was, when I watched my brother beat it, I saw he got the ending where Shepard's chest plate kind of, she's breathing, or he's breathing. Where he's breathing in the where he's breathing, and I thought that was cool. I thought, okay, like, Shepard's alive, what does that mean? And we didn't know what it I don't know, I kind of like ambiguity at the end. And so when it ended and I had played and I didn't see that, and instead, like, I feel like I'm trying to remember the original endings. Yeah, it just shot through, like it was a different colored beam that shot through space. But the one difference is that you get this ending that Shepard is alive in. And I felt like it was only when you killed when you killed the Reapers and chose Anderson's route. I liked the ambiguity of Shepard is alive and the Reapers are dead. So ultimately we win. It wasn't very descriptive. I liked the indoctrination theories. I liked all these cool theories coming out of it. So when they released the DLC to fix the ending or flesh it out a little more, I really did not like it, because then they pretty much solidified that, no, this is it. This is, we're done. And here's a little more pictures to kind of help you through the story. And I didn't like it because I really appreciated the ambiguity. I accepted it and kind of played around with different ideas in my mind, and I was happy with that. Kind of like when people were upset that they showed a picture of Tally in the third game when you romance her. And it was just disappointing. And they're like, it's better that they had just left her with a helmet on. We liked not knowing what this really beautiful species looks like. They felt like it was kind of lazy. And the same thing with the female Krogan. They did such a great job on a female Turian. And then you see the female Krogan and she's a male Krogan with a shawl covering her. Like it was Rex with dressed in as a woman. So that was disappointing as well. I had hoped it would have been more of a slender but tough type of lizard, or
a little bit more female in its
It didn't have
look.
to be female, because it could absolutely be rough. I mean, there's a lot of this talk that the Krogans, I mean, they almost remind me of dwarves. when you read about dwarves and the females aren't very pretty or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the Krogan didn't need to be feminine, but I felt like there should be differences. With every species,
Right.
there's a little bit of difference. Solarians weren't very different, but they're frogs, so I was okay.
So when you finish Mass Effect 3 and the trilogy of these amazing games were over, I know you say you don't really like comparing games to each other. You say, oh, when a new game comes out, everyone kind of immediately starts looking at the other one and comparing the two right out of the gate. But when you do finish those games and you have some time to actually think about them, which one is your favorite?
I appreciate the first one, and I like replaying it. I would say that my favorite one is the first Mass Effect.
Out of all the characters in all three games, which one is your favorite?
I would say Caden.
Why?
Because he matches, again, he's similar to Shepard. And I think also a part of me, the feminist in me, is like, here's Shepard, she's woman. Hear her roar. And I like having this male soldier type figure following Shepard and also still relating to what she's had to go through because they've both gone through the Alliance and being loyal to their... And that's my Paragon Shepard. Because my Renegade Shepard would go with Thane or Garrus.
Okay.
And I felt like that was more of a Renegade option. I don't know why.
Okay.
But yeah, I felt like the more wholesome option was just a Caden who understood. And there are two soldiers that end up getting through the entire thing.
Do you have a favorite?
Oh, and also because I loved Karth Onasi in the first game. And that's Karth's voice. And so it was
same voice actor.
It was so familiar when I heard him talking. I thought, hey, that's Karth. And I felt like I was back in Knights of the Old Republic. And I think I just like that nostalgia out of the character.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite quest or story mission?
Out of all three games?
Out of all three games.
I really, really, really liked the Legion or the Geth and Quarian War. When you get down on the planet with Tali and you're running through the planet, I mean, there's lots of stuff going back and forth between her and Legion, but you get to the end and Legion, he's got to do what's right for his people. And so he's going to do it, and he's going to upload the Reaper code and all this stuff. And Tali's terrified for her people because they're very short-sighted and want to bomb the planet and are bombing the planet to destroy the Geth. So there's this huge back and forth between them. Shepard's got to yell at the Quarians a little bit. And Legion successfully uploads everything and then becomes a single person, where for all this time he'd been all of the Geth. Legion finally became one person. And it was just a really good storyline.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any favorite weapons that you use more often than not?
Yes. So for my Paragon Shepard, it's always been the handgun, the Carnifex.
Do you think it's overpowered?
No. Well, you can upgrade. Once you upgrade all of like to the top part of that gun, like it is really, really good. And it's only overpowered if you're playing on super easy difficulties. Right. When you're playing on harder difficulties, nothing's really overpowered.
Yeah, I think it's very balanced.
Yeah.
On what is it, hardcore difficulty?
Yeah, I think hardcore is very balanced. I really like playing through that one. It feels better. There's a little bit more of a challenge. You're not just shooting everybody down and running through it, and it tells you that in the difficulty menu that normal is for someone who's maybe their first time playing through the shooter or something.
Uh-huh.
A veteran is meant for people who are used to shooters or first-person shooters or whatever. Hardcore gives you more of a challenge, and insanity is the most difficult one.
Right. So when you finished this and the Mass Effect trilogy was kind of laid to rest for a few years, but you started hearing grumblings basically of a new Mass Effect, what was going through your mind? Like what did you envision the fourth Mass Effect game to be?
I knew it wasn't going to have Shepard in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of thought we're just going to be in the same universe and we're going to follow a new person.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I didn't want it to go any specific way. I was just ready for another Mass Effect.
Now, what we got, unfortunately,
and I went back to replay it, and it's weird because it's such a pretty game, and
man, it looks so good.
And the combat could be fun, but there are times that it feels weird. I don't mind playing it. I'll play it a few times, and the last time I tried getting back into it, I finally decided that I have to realize it's just not Mass Effect. It is a different game.
Yeah, with the Mass Effect series labeled on, basically.
Yeah, with Mass Effect on there, and they, of course, use the same terms and everything, but it's not the same game. They tried to do more of a single playthrough thing because they give you ways to play.
Long.
It's ways to play as everything.
Yeah.
So you don't like just being locked into this, then you can change it to this middle of the game. You can change it back to that at any time. You may want to. We've created the game so you have to swap back and forth.
Right.
Or, you may want to or think about it because this certain enemy would be better fought in this whatever setting. I don't like that. When I sit down and play, I want to play. I don't want to keep swapping my styles. I'm a creature of habit, and so it's weird to do that. When I sit down with my Paragon, I know she's a sniper. I know what Y is. I know what all that stuff is, and I play through the game. And I have my soldier. I know what everything is. I know where everything's mapped. It's all the same, and I'll play through the game that way. This Andromeda had almost too many options to go through.
Yeah.
And so when I attempted to play it, it just felt like, why is this stupidly hard? Like there were parts where I thought there's just way too much crap coming out of, and I mean, so glitchy. There was this one where everybody was invisible.
I remember that. Yeah.
That was ridiculous. And I was getting so frustrated, but that's not even the worst of it. I think the worst of it was playing and realizing that I had no idea I wanted my decisions to mean more.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what any of them meant. I thought, what am I choosing? And I wasn't used to that because I'm used to Knights of the Old Republic and Mass Effect, where it's like I'm going to turn into a Paragon or I'm going to turn into a Sith or whatever. And this one, I thought, this is just building a personality for no reason. And so I wasn't attached to that.
Yeah. I think with Andromeda...
And I even attempted to create my own renegade. I was like, maybe illogical and whatever. It doesn't work.
I think my big issue with Andromeda wasn't even the gameplay style. I actually loved the combat. That's my favorite thing about that game is I wish that they would pull all the story out and just leave the combat, and I could do combat missions all day long in that game because I had a real fun time. I wouldn't be
interested if there's no story.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of danger room missions or anything like that too. Like with
there was that weird one where I was in the ancient thing, and there's all these robots coming out of wherever, and it wasn't very clear how I can get past that. Why do they keep spawning?
Right.
And you apparently had to kill this one thing first, and it's like I couldn't figure that out, and I felt like it wasn't very well described, and it was such a tight space and really no cover in the bigger room that I thought, why is this happening? This is not fun at this point.
Yeah. With Andromeda, I just felt like that game was basically trying to be a copycat of Mass Effect. Like you have, instead of Shepard, you had the Pathfinder, and it was just it just felt so tacked together, kind of like at the last minute. And it was a bummer. And I don't like hating on that game because I think that game got hated on a little too much. And I think it was deserved at some point, too. I thought
they had they attempted. They had a pretty cool alien race. I didn't meet. I didn't mind.
The manta ray looking guy?
Ja Rule. Yeah,
Ja Rule.
Or something. I have no idea what it was. It's something with a hyphen. And so there's a bunch of those guys. And I didn't mind them. I thought, this is fine. The Ket are there, which is the enemy. I don't know if there's anything else because there's Krogan and Turians again because you all came from the other universe. I appreciated I really like that you created your character and the dad changed depending on how you made it. They used whatever features you used and that kind of determined how your dad was going to look.
Right.
And so I kind of like that, and that you can choose I don't know what the purpose of the twin was because I didn't get that far in the game. Yeah, it was, I don't even, the one time I thought, let me pick this up and try to play it again. I just wanted to talk to everybody again, and they had nothing to say, and I couldn't even remember what their stories were.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like, I don't feel like I can keep playing.
Yeah. It's a bummer, too, because I was looking forward to that game.
Yeah, and it's exploratory. Like, they want you to do a lot of exploring and, like, and I get it, the Pathfinder or whatever, but every world you've got to, like, complete certain things. And I thought, what is happening?
Yeah.
I know there's the cat, or is it Ket or something like that?
The Khajiit, who knows?
Ja Rule and the Khajiit.
Yeah, that game, it's a bummer the way it turned out, but they say that they're going to come back to the series at some point. Whether that's because what is that game? Anthem is doing so poorly, they might ice it off very quickly and come back to it, or they stick with their guns and put it on ice for a good solid 5 or 6 years before they reattempt bringing it back. What do you want out of a new Mass Effect game? Since we got Andromeda and we know what we don't want.
Right. And that was a fine game. I felt tricked. If they had named it something else and it just would have been from the creators of Mass Effect or something and just gone with something else. I guess they did take a bunch of Turians or whatever, but I just would have known not to play it.
Right.
I would love, I know I've read comments that people were like, just, the Mass Effect series is done with Shepard's story. Leave that alone. I would love to see Shepard again. I would love to have Shepard come back and have a little other thing come out. I don't see why you shouldn't be able to have another Shepard story.
Do you want a prequel?
Not a prequel, another ending. I know it ended the way it did and they kind of killed it there.
Mm-hmm.
Had they not done that extra DLC, because you're asking me what I would love to see. I wish they hadn't killed it by completing the ending and saying, like, this is it. Because if it would have just been the breastplate rising and falling, then there's room for another Mass Effect. Whether it's rebuilding and figuring out if, maybe Cerberus, they're still humans. There's still going to be Cerberus there.
Right.
They're not going to die, just the ones with Reaper technology are. So there's still going to be all of that in the universe. And maybe you're going to see an elusive man in that game trying to recreate a Reaper. Who knows? I felt like they could have done another Mass Effect.
Like maybe 15, 20 years later or something like that.
Or absolutely. Because Shepard's going to be like 40 something. Yeah, why not? Snake did it.
Yeah.
I think that could have worked, but they killed it.
Yeah.
So since we cannot have another Shepard, I wouldn't mind another person. I don't want to play as one of, I know a lot of people say, Garrus as a cop or something, Garrus's days. I don't like that because there's no room. I can't change what Garrus is. That doesn't make any sense. So there's not going to be multiple playthroughs. There's not going to be different experiences in each playthroughs, which is what I liked. I liked that I could play one game multiple times and get different experiences. For some reason, they want to just have one playthrough now. And what happens when they did that was Andromeda.
Right.
They put too much into it.
Yeah. It was more of, hey, look at this. Hey, oh, what about this? It didn't feel connected. It felt like it was just throwing as many options at the wall as possible and seeing what stuck. And for me, if I was going to say, hey, this is the thing I want for another Mass Effect, I don't really know what I would want.
You didn't ask me about Miranda.
What about Miranda?
I always killed her in Mass Effect 2.
Oh, you did?
So I kept her alive for one playthrough on Paragon, and once I saw that she really doesn't matter, I would kill her. So I'd do her loyalty mission, and then I would have Jack fight with her. And I would choose Jack, or, they always fought whenever you came back from finishing both loyalty missions.
Right. So
I would agree with Jack so that I would lose Miranda's loyalty. And then I would make all the right decisions at the end, and she would end up dying. She'd always be her face on the floor when it's pans through.
Not like Miranda.
I don't.
What?
So she would I would remove
What did
her.
she do to you? Jeez.
I already told you that I just didn't like. I explained all of that.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. And so it's like, I don't need that in my third game. If she was going to make me, I didn't want to have to hate a character in the third game. So I wasn't going to bring her with me. And I was very disappointed that they abandoned Jacob. Because he piqued my interest. I'm sure he piqued a lot of people's interest. You get to the third game, you get to meet with him a little bit, but he's done. It's like there's nothing left to his character. I thought they did a fantastic job with Thane. Because Thane still got to fight and rescue and do a lot of really cool stuff. And then he died the way he was supposed to because he was dying in the second game.
Right.
So I thought that was really impactful, and he just kind of lived his life. It's like Jacob's just in the background of the hospital the whole game, and you're like, hey, Jacob, like, I know you killed your dad in my playthrough in the second game, but we're just not going to talk anymore. It's really weird. They abandoned him.
It's a little bit disconnected, for sure.
Yeah. And I think that's it, though. I liked Zaid popping back up. You just kind of help him out with some missionary stuff, and then he's some resources for your whole war on the Reapers.
Since Andromeda is basically like Indiana Jones 4, which just basically doesn't exist.
Right.
With the quote-unquote new Mass Effect 4, would you want, since we're kind of going the Star Wars route and continuing on after prequels and all that garbage.
Actually, I wouldn't mind a Shepard prequel.
Really?
Is that what you're going toward?
No.
Oh.
I was going to say, do you want to see more characters from those past games pop back in as cameos and stuff like that? Or do you feel
I wouldn't mind. Like,
cheap?
if there was I don't think that's cheap if they do it right. Like seeing Zaid, but then it depends. Maybe I'm different and the majority of the fans don't feel that way. And so I'm never going to get my games. But Zaid, like, I liked the throwback to Canderous, and maybe other people didn't feel that that's what that was, but I did, because he just sat there and kind of gave you these war stories, and that was like my favorite part of Knights of the Old Republic.
Yeah.
And it was Karth Onasi was really the honorable character who wasn't going to turn dark despite your character turning dark, and I felt like they tried to keep that honorable part to Caden. So even though people think he's flat, I don't think he's flat. He's just not taking any risks. He's going to do the right thing all the time.
Okay.
I don't know how I branched out to that, but
yeah, that's good. I think that the Mass Effect series definitely can come back, even though Andromeda came out and stumbled really hard, and there's a lot of people.
Yeah, because Mass Effect is not tainted.
I don't think so.
1
at
through
all.
3 is
Yeah.
what it is, and they can keep putting out games. I wouldn't mind. I mean, I'll try every one they put out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that BioWare is definitely different than it was, in 2007 for sure. In 2010 and then 2012 is when 3 came out, I believe, right?
2011? 12?
2010 for the second one, and then 2012 for the third one.
2007 was the first one.
Right. And then 2010 for the second one.
Are you sure?
I am 100% positive.
Oh, then why are you saying right? Because then I'm going to look it up.
And then, oh man, now you lost
what? Okay,
my
so
train of thought.
2007, 2010, 2012.
So, BioWare is different than it was back then. A lot of people have left,
I feel like
and
people
all
are
that stuff.
chasing the one game or whatever.
Right.
It's like, I want another experience.
Yeah, I don't need the same experience. I don't want the same experience.
Yeah, I just want, I would like to have Mass Effect again.
A very similar experience.
Like the way Mass Effect was similar to Knights of the Old Republic, but a different game.
Right, exactly.
That's what I want.
Okay. So with that, I think we kind of covered a lot of, we covered all 3, quote unquote, 4 games of that series. Is there anything that you want to talk about before we sign off? No? Any games that you've been playing or you're looking forward to?
I'm probably going to go play Mass Effect.
You're probably going to go play Mass Effect now? Oh,
yeah.
Good. Great. Now I get to go watch that for like an 8th time. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Game or Die podcast. Again, I am Ryan Moore.
I am Mrs. Moore.
And if you have any questions, concerns, comments, or anything, you can drop us a line at I believe the email is game or die. No, it's either Ryan at gameordie.net or podcast at gameordie.net. I think I
try
have
both. CC1.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, that's it for this episode. Thank you very much for listening, and we will talk to you guys next time.
You perform Gilbert and Sullivan?
I am the very model of a scientist Solarian. I've studied species Turian, Asari, and Batarian. I'm quite good at genetics as a subset of biology because I am an expert, which I know is a tautology. My xenoscience studies range from urban to agrarian. I am the very model of a scientist Solarian.